Hey, party people. I am not used to being on camera. I am not used to speaking into a microphone. I am not used to speaking with proper enunciation. I don't know much about video editing. I do not know much about lighting or camera setup or what makes a good video. I don't really know much of anything about video production in general. Frankly, I have no business starting a YouTube channel because I have no idea what I am doing. However, however, I wanted to make a YouTube channel and I want to put myself out there and I want to talk to people about stuff going on in my life because right now in my life I am going through what I would call a bit of a rough patch. Going through quite the rough patch right now. Um, so why is that? The reason is that for the last half a year, last 5, 6 months, um, I have been dealing with a pernicious little medical condition, um, a visual processing disorder, uh, which seems to be visual snow syndrome. Now, I say seems to be because I don't really have so much static in my vision. That tends to be the primary symptom of visual snow syndrome that people talk about is the static. I don't so much have that. I have that a little bit, but it's more of like a pop and a fizz. It's more like a bit of film grain. It's not so much a static, except at night. But I think that's just the regular neural noise that most people have, and I used to have prior to August. August is when something happened. Um, I injured my neck doing something stupid. I will fully admit that what's happening to me is my fault to a great extent because I chose to do something very dumb where I put a lot of my body weight on my neck, and in so doing, I seem to have caused an issue with my neck, which in turn is affecting my visual processing, such that I've been having quite a few very scary, very difficult to deal with visual symptoms. So back in August, went on August 3rd, 2024, I put a lot of my body weight on my neck, and I think a few hours after I did that, I was reading a book. I was reading The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, and I started noticing these blue dots in my vision, like these blue flickers of light. And I thought that was weird. That's never happened before. Initially, I thought it was the blue lights on my microwave that are my microwave is just over there. But no, no, I soon realized that the lights in my vision were coming from they were internal. They were coming from my eyes, or they seemed to be coming from my eyes. They weren't coming from the external environment. So I thought, okay, that's weird. Um, I thought maybe it was just a one-off, so I kept reading the book, and got a few pages later, saw another one of those blue lights. I thought that's really odd. That is really, really odd. Um, but whatever, I was close to finishing the book, and I did. And I woke up the next day, and I had this huge blob in my vision. I had like yellow, a yellow ovalish blob in like the top right part of my vision. And It was more noticeable in dark areas, this yellow blob in my vision. But it had this weird effect where even when I didn't see it, I knew it was there. It's hard to describe, but I would go on to have this blob in my vision for 6 days in total. August 4th through August 10th, I would have this blob in my vision at all times. But eventually went away, which is good. But I started noticing other symptoms. Um, I noticed that when I would read books, or when I would kind of concentrate my eyes on something that was kind of light colored, I would see like these red and green, sometimes red and blue dots kind of scatter across what I was looking at. So if I was reading words on the page in like the spaces around the words, I would see these alternating red and green dots or alternating red and blue dots. And that was very odd. I was very concerned about all these weird things happening in my vision. I went and saw my optometrist, who uh, who was concerned when I mentioned the blob in my vision, and he did a test to just make sure it wasn't retinal detachment, and it was not. But then he referred me to an ophthalmologist, and the ophthalmologist did a series of tests on my eyes, and he couldn't find anything wrong. Um, at this point, I had not linked what I had done with my neck to what was going on in my vision, so I assumed that what I was dealing with was just an eye problem. So the ophthalmologist did some more tests, and they did some ultrasounds of my eye, and they were able to take pictures of the inside of my eye, and they dilated my eye for that, and they had me do a bunch of tests, and they couldn't find anything in my eye that would cause the symptoms I was experiencing then. The only abnormality about my eyes outside the astigmatism, which I've had my whole life, is that I had some drusens and pseudopallademia. Um, but uh, those are things that would not cause the symptoms I was having. So they said, "All right, well, your eyes seem perfectly healthy. You're having these vision things, so it looks like it's a brain issue. So, in order to rule out a brain tumor, we're gonna have you take, or we're gonna have you undergo some MRIs." I said, "Okay." So I had some MRIs done, and fortunately, very fortunately, there was no brain tumor. Um, but that still left some questions. At this point, I did not make the connection between my neck, with what happened with my neck, uh, and the vision problems I had right after. Because when I put a lot of my body weight on my neck, I didn't experience any pain from doing that. I felt a bit of a head rush, and I remember thinking at the time, "Ooh, yeah, maybe I should not have done that. Hope there's no consequences from that." But otherwise, there was no pain, and I didn't think that issues with the neck could cause issues with vision or visual processing. Um, but it can, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Let's go back to the story here. August goes by, and September comes in, and September was a milestone. Sorry, excuse me. Within September, I had a kind of a milestone birthday, at least here in the United States, because I turned 26. And in the United States, when you turn 26, you lose access to your parents' health insurance. So I, on the day of my 26th birthday, I had become uninsured. Now, this was a bit of an issue because one of the things that also happened in September was I got a new symptom. Um, I have since gone on to have multiple new symptoms since September, but the symptom I got in September has easily been the worst symptom. And that symptom is the after images. So what is an after image? An after image is when you look at something and then you stop looking at it, but even though you're not looking at it anymore, it still appears in your vision. So right now, I have this sleep mask on, but if I were to take this off and I were to look at the screen here, um, above the screen there is a light that indicates that the camera on my laptop is recording. Now, if I were to look at that light and then look up above it, I will see that light again. In fact, I will also see the top part of my computer again. If I were to look at where the mouse is, and I were to look away from where the mouse is, or I'm sorry, the cursor on the screen. If I were to look at the cursor and look away from the cursor, I would see that cursor again in my vision. Things that are high contrast or stand out from the background are things that appear again in my vision. So if I'm going down the street and there's like, or sorry, if I'm walking down the sidewalk and like the cracks on the sidewalk, if I were to walk by them, the crack would be in my vision. I would look up from where the crack is, and I would see the crack again in kind of like the more smooth part of the pavement. If there's like litter or debris on the sidewalk, I look at it, look away, I see it again in my vision. Um, if I'm watching a movie and there's a scene where it's your typical like shot reverse shot, so someone's on the left side of the screen and then it cuts to someone on the right side of the screen and then cuts back to someone on the left side of the screen. Every time it cuts, I see like that person's face in like the negative space within the next shot and then back again. So it's constantly going back and forth between like two characters talking. I'm constantly seeing their faces again in the next shot, in the space where their face was in the previous shot. I'm not hopefully I'm explaining this well. I'm not sure if I'm getting across. In the description of this video, I'm going to put video that kind of showcases the symptom a little bit better than I'm explaining it. But since September of last year, I have been dealing with this particular symptom. And although I have more symptoms than that, and the ones previously mentioned, this symptom is the one that is definitely the hardest to deal with because it kind of makes watching movies not enjoyable. It makes watching animation not enjoyable. For the most part, it kind of makes playing games not enjoyable. Games are a little bit easier because if I'm focused on a task, it's easier to ignore the after images. But otherwise, I do still notice them, and it kind of takes away from the experience. I have other symptoms too. When I'm looking at bright lights, I see like these rainbow halos around them. And if I remember to in the description, I'm gonna put some links to images that do a good job of getting across some of these symptoms. I also have some ghosting. I see like a little bit of diplopia or double or seeing double with each eye. It's less pronounced when I have my glasses on, but it's I noticed that more so when I'm looking at a screen in a dark room, like earlier when I had the face mask off and I was looking at the cursor. the cursor appeared to be like a circle of cursors. I didn't just see like the one cursor. I saw like a um, yeah, like a circle of different cursors. So I I can still function. You know, I'm in college, um, and I have a job, and I'm able to do the tasks assigned to me at my job, and I'm able to do the assignments at my college, and I'm able to do, you know, household chores. Like it hasn't, I have not been um, rendered incapable of performing, you know, my day-to-day activities because of this condition. But it has lowered my quality of life to a fair degree. And the the one reason why I don't feel completely hopeless with what's going on is because I do believe that this is not permanent and this is not forever, and that I can actually uh, go back to a previous state where I did not have these symptoms. Um, and that is because I know that the origin of these symptoms has to do with me injuring my neck and that they're being further exasperated by my bad posture. But I made it my New Year's resolution to fix my posture. And you might think that that is a pretty straightforward task of just like, okay, well, sit up straight, stand up straight, and you're good. Fixing posture is a little bit more complicated than that. Um, you want to strengthen certain muscles and stretch out other ones that become tight due to bad postural habits. Um, and right now, I'm dealing with all the usual stuff people deal with, or I should say, I'm dealing with all the things that are typical in terms of bad posture nowadays. So I have the forward head tilt. I have the rounded shoulders. I have the pelvic anterior tilt, where my pelvis kind of goes forward more than it should. And I know that there are exercises for all these, and I've been doing some. I've been going to yoga as often as I can. There's actually a pretty lengthy Reddit post that will also link in the description of someone who got the symptoms I have and then some doing something similar. In fact, if you go to that Reddit post, you will see a comment from me under the same name, Quasimodo Can't See. And that name is just a riff on my bad posture and my visual processing disorder. But from this Reddit post, this guy had also injured his neck and had bad posture and had all the same symptoms and then some that I have. But he was able to get rid of all the symptoms by spending a lot of time doing yoga and spending a lot of time working on his posture and exercising and stretching and all that. And so I know that there's hope for me um, to reach a point where I don't have these symptoms anymore. But I know even optimizing my time perfectly in terms of exercise and yoga, it'll still be a while before these issues are fixed. So I'm in it for the long haul, but that also means that for the foreseeable future, at least for the next several months or so, I will have this condition and it's going to be a long time before it even starts to get better. I'm optimistic that before 2026, I will see a reduction in my symptoms, but I don't know that for certain. I'm really hoping that is the case. Um, but dealing with this in the interim is a little bit of a challenge. Even though I know that I'm working on it and it's going to get better, dealing with it day by day is still it's still hard. And I've had a lot of anxiety. I've had a lot of anxiety dealing with these symptoms, and for the first time in my life, I'm taking medication for it. I'm taking I'm gonna pronounce it wrong. Escitalopram. It's the generic name for what is Lexapro. That's what I'm taking. I'm also in therapy, but these are things I haven't like done before. Um, I actually did therapy for a little bit a decade ago when I was 16, uh, but for a completely different issue, some different issues I was having at that time. But I've never taken SSRI before. Last year, I started taking them in November, and I've kept up taking them. Um, and one of the reasons why I know that my um, visual snow symptoms are caused by my physiological issue, my neck, and not the origin of the issue is not in the brain, is because a lot of people who get visual snow syndrome from migraines or concussions or HPPV, when they take SSRIs, it has a significant effect on their symptoms. And for me, it doesn't have any effect whatsoever. And neither does alcohol. I can drink alcohol and my symptoms don't change at all, one way or the other. So I know in my case, like my vision things are purely from the neck. Um, so one of the easier things is I can take medication, and that kind of helps with my day-to-day anxiety. But nonetheless, I still wanted to make a channel and speak about um, kind of like the goings on of my life because this is kind of a rough patch for me. And while I can and do talk to the people in my personal life, my friends and family, I also just kind of want to make this condition more well known because um, it's kind of a rare condition, visual snow syndrome. Excuse me. You kind of have to have a lot of migraines, have a certain type of concussion, or injure your neck, or have bad posture. A combination of those, or like injure your neck in a very specific way, which I did, or have like really bad posture for a long time, which I also have and do. Um, it's not something most people have any experience with, and it's not something that you're gonna know that someone has it unless they tell you because it doesn't present on the outside in any way. You can't tell by looking at me that when I look at something, look away, I see an after image. You can't tell by looking at me that when I look at street lights, there's a big rainbow halo around them, and there's also starbursting where like the lights kind of streak and like the star pattern. You wouldn't know from looking at me that when I look at the light, when I look at a street light, I see it completely differently from how you see it, unless you also have the same condition that I do. And I'm sorry if you do, because I know how much it sucks to have this condition. It really sucks. Um, but I know what the path forward is in my case because I got it as the result of a neck issue. And if you also have gotten sudden onset visual processing issues as a result of poor posture or neck issue, I also know what the pathway forward for you is, and it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be doing lots of yoga. It's going to be working on posture. It's going to be stretching. It's going to be exercise. It's going to be a lot of hard work over a long period of time, but these symptoms can go away. And I've seen stories from other people where they have. And I want that for myself, and I want that for everybody that is experiencing this issue because it's hard. It's life is not impossible, but it's a lot harder than it used to be. It is a lot harder than it used to be. But yeah, I wanted to share this story, and I want to use this channel to talk about whatever. It can be accountability for myself. I want to report to you that I am doing what I need to be doing every week to fight this. That I'm exercising, that um, uh, I'm doing my stretches, I'm doing the yoga, I'm doing what I need to do. I want it to be I want some accountability for myself. Um, yeah, I want to post at least once a week saying, um, I want to be able to tell you that I'm doing what I need to do, and eventually, I want to I want to tell people like, hey, after all these months of working hard, the symptoms are finally reducing. I want to be able to tell you that. But I just wanted to talk about, whatever. Um, I still read books, even though I have this visual issue. The symptom that's most noticeable when I read books now is that if I have a series of sentences in front of me, a series of lines, and I'm looking at these lines as I'm reading the words, and I look away from them, I will see like imprints of those lines on like any blank surface. So if I'm looking at a wall or a ceiling or just even like the blank spots of a page, I will see those lines in my vision. For a few seconds, they go away. Um, that's the symptom I notice the most when I read. Luckily, my symptoms haven't progressed to the point where I'm looking at a word, and as my eyes move to the next word, that word overlaps with the other one. That happens to some people with visual snow syndrome. Luckily, that's not happening to me right now. I hope it never does. But because it doesn't, I can still read, even though I read slower now because of the visual stuff. I'm still doing it. I still plan to read more books this year than I did the previous year, which is always a New Year's resolution for me for every year. I'm doing pretty well so far. I've finished 3 books, and I'm working on the fourth one. The main book I'm reading at the moment is uh, The Savage Detectives by Roberto Bolaño. I'm very much enjoying it. Last year I read 2666, and also on this channel I want to talk about the books I'm reading because that's kind of my primary source of entertainment right now. I'm not really playing video games at the moment or watching movies or watching TV shows or doing much else. I kind of just listen to YouTube videos, podcasts, or the news or music or audiobooks, and I read. Those are kind of purely audio things, or books are like my only sources of entertainment for the moment, which is fine. That's enough to get me through this rough patch. Um, but yeah, this is kind of long and rambly. I don't have a script, obviously. I'm not even. My eyes are closed beneath these or I'm sorry, beneath this sleep mask. So I'm obviously not reading off anything. I'm just kind of winging it. I don't have much of a plan. Um, I just kind of want to share what I'm going through with the world while I'm going through it. And who knows, maybe I'll fix all my visual stuff, but I'll still want to upload videos about whatever. But we'll see. So stay tuned for more if that sounds interesting to you. And if nothing else, I hope you have learned about visual snow syndrome. And yeah, that's all. Thanks so much for watching this and for listening to me yap on about my problems.